my Area 51 line. You're on the air. Hello.
Welcome to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, where what you've known as reality will be shattered by the truth. Krista and Brandy will lift the veil from your eyes, revealing what has either been hidden or denied you for eons.
Hey, happy Thursday.
What day is it again?
Oh, I had to think about it a minute too.
It's Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday.
It is Thursday. Happy
Wow.
Thursday.
It's been a very long week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm just like, oh, my gosh. If it's not one thing, it's another every single day.
Yeah,
Every single day. Yeah.
I've been home with a sick kid yesterday. And so I kind of got behind on work, and work was just crappy today because the new cleaning lady decided to clean all my area, and somehow she knocked my docking station out and it quit. So I couldn't actually do my work till about 9:30 today. Yeah.
Oh, no. So that just puts you behind. You got to hate those days.
I know. It's like, I appreciate you trying to clean, but just stay out of my stuff. And then on top of it, so like I am on so many different programs at work, and so I have sticky notes of passwords on the bottom of one of my monitors. She took them all off. I'm like, what the heck? Like, who does that?
Who does that?
I know, right? It's like, that's why I told my boss. I was like, you tell her I don't want her cleaning my stuff anymore. I don't want her in my little room. I don't want her around my stuff.
But who takes your notes like that? I mean, can you imagine? I mean, she doesn't know what those things are.
No. And they were all taped on the bottom of one of my monitors. Yeah. I know. So that was, it was probably, it was pretty annoying. I was pretty perturbed this morning at work. And then I just couldn't get caught up. You know how that goes.
I think we'd have a little talk or a little chat with the cleaning lady saying, look, no.
Yeah. The only problem is she doesn't speak English. So that's why I told my boss, I was like, well, you need to tell her not to clean my stuff. I don't want my stuff clean. I clean my own. Every week I wipe my stuff down. It's
well, you know what? I'm sorry. It doesn't matter what, you speak, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. You got to know you can't take people's stuff and throw it away.
Right.
It's not like it was a used napkin.
Right. Thank you.
It had information on it.
She's really, really like deep cleaning, because she's like cleaning the baseboards and stuff. I noticed her doing that today. I'm like, man, that's going above and beyond. Just saying.
Maybe a little too good. I'm just saying.
Right. So anyway, it's just been a heck of a day today. It really has. It's started out crappy, and it's ending good though, because I've been looking forward to this show.
Absolutely. We've got another all ladies chat tonight. Yep. And I'm super excited because it's one of our favorite cryptids we're going to be talking about. And, we were chatting a little bit about this before we came on air, and we need more women. Sorry. There needs to be more women in this field.
Yeah. Yep.
Who are serious about it and love to do it. That's just it.
Who actually go out in the field and do their, do their thing out there.
Do their research, and they're diligent. Yeah, we need these ladies.
Yeah, absolutely. And Smoky Mountain Wanderer, I'm going to give a shout out to him. He actually this weekend was at the Bigfoot festival that we were at, and he helped hold our tent down. And he helped us put it away. He's a good guy. So thank you very much for all your help this past weekend. So
yeah. He literally held down the fort.
Yes,
I mean, held on to the fort.
Literally held down the fort.
Literally held on to it.
So by the afternoon, the wind just came a swooshing, and then finally, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to ruin my pop tent. So he helped Paul and I take them down. So.
Yeah, we were sitting out there in our spot, just a table and some chairs. That's all we had because everything else went flying. So that was it.
Yeah. And luckily it wasn't until the afternoon.
Right.
All morning, all day. But tomorrow night show, guys, tune in. We're going to talk more about that conference and stuff. So anyway, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get Ashlea up here. She looks like she's ready. Hey there.
Hey, Ashlea. Glad you could come on and be with us tonight.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to have this little digital campfire with y'all and talk about the best subject in the entire world as far as I'm concerned, Sasquatch, paranormal Sasquatch. So
yeah, I hear you. And I've heard all great things about you. Chris Kramer has talked very highly of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Chris Kramer is an amazing man. Yes. I call that man my brother, and I do it from my heart. And there's a lot of similarities between his story and mine. I think that's probably where that connection just first started. Well, of course it is, because I didn't know him until after I saw his interview on A Flash of Beauty.
Right.
And that's where I learned about the healing that he received and this initiation that he's gone through with the clan up in the Mogollon Rim. Yeah. And that's very similar. I know what that's like. I've had those experiences myself, those just incredible connections to the Sasquatch people. And if you need some help and you ask, you just might get it. And it'll come to you in the biggest ways.
You started out on a subject note that I also co-host with Bigfoot Michigan Rob on Tuesday nights. And this past Tuesday, we had Miguel Ramirez from Sasquatch Theory. And he talked about how a Sasquatch kind of healed him as well. So, I mean, his was the second story I had heard, because I had heard from Chris about how the Sasquatch had healed him. So I think that's pretty amazing.
It is. And it's something that not only have I experienced on really big, deep levels, like this is the things that they helped me get through changed my life forever. Wow. And have continued to develop, as time goes by and the connection deepens and the healing deepens. Wow. So, and yeah, man, it's not just me. It's not just Chris. It's not just Miguel. But I have within the camping group or the camping groups that I'm involved with, I can look at pretty much every single one and think of an instance where healing has been at the top of the charts for connection during the campouts. So this individual fully, the Sasquatch know you, right? They know everything about you. They know every single flaw. They know every single, ounce of beauty. And the unconditional love that is from them encompasses all of that, right? Like all the flaws, all of the things that make us superhuman and super, volatile within ourselves. Yeah. And then for that to be a non-issue. And to say, I see beyond that. And I see that light that's in you. And if I can help in these small ways, which are pretty big ways, but small ways, because they aren't doing it for us necessarily, right? They're not taking the responsibility away from us, but the encouragement and the small things that they can do and do. Right. Really just like open us up. And that's more of kind of like this emotional healing that I've seen so often. With the physical healings, yeah, man, like just like with Chris had, a very true physical healing on an issue that he had, and it happened overnight, and it was a frequency-based energetic thing. I have absolutely had that too happen while I'm in my tent. And after I have asked, hey, my knee is really causing me some problems. If you guys can help in any type of way with my knee, I would certainly appreciate it. And guess what? I'll have a visit at my tent that night. And and I will have an energetic frequency, tingling vibration sensation on the knee that's having problems. And then, I go to sleep and I wake up the next day, my knee's better, Wow. So that's just an example, but I've seen that with many shoulders, knees, feet, all on the physical aspect of it. And that emotional healing that's happening is kind of like this extended therapy, right? Where we're working a little bit on this, and then you're going home and you're going to contemplate and you're going to, live your life. You're going to be in your physical life. You're going to take that with you. And then when you come back into the forest, we're going to work on lesson 2. It's going to integrate this and it's going to bring you to number 3. So there's just, this continued education that is just so dedicated to healing along with the education. And I had my first encounter with them in 2013. It was up near Mount Adams in Washington. This is after in 2010 moving up into the Pacific Northwest and starting to have a lot of UFO activity, not just a little, a lot. And I had UFO activity throughout my life, but it's not something that I paid attention to. It wasn't a topic. I got as far as maybe, like X-Files, and I love the show, but I was not investigating further. Sure. I was busy doing other things, but I did have experiences, and I didn't pay attention to them. Right. It's too much for my brain right now. So I'm just going to put it in my pocket and go on with my life. Well, I moved up here in the Pacific Northwest, and now all of those experiences were falling out of my pockets and hanging out with the new experiences that were in the skies. Right. Right. So the UFO activity at that point, it was like, I do have to pay attention to this. I do have to put some time and effort into this. What is going on? And then, I really had this autodidactic awakening during this first, 2010 to 2013 of the multidimensional reality of where we're at. And I went in full force and I dedicated myself. I turned the TV off. I turned everything off. And I went straight into just as much research to give me perspective for what I was experiencing. Sure. And that led to 2013 of having my first experience with the Sasquatch people and having, a 3-year buffer of a lot of UFO activity and meeting a lot of people who had UFO activity and understood more of the multidimensional reality. I had already heard that the Sasquatch were psychic. I had already heard that they were multidimensional, and it did not faze me, nor did I have a wall up saying, oh, that can't be possible. So because I didn't have I had no, Sasquatch was not on my radar at all for anything. I came from the Southwest, up here, it's very prominent where it doesn't matter really where you go. You're going to see a carved statue, or you're going to see a bumper sticker or a hat or something. It's not like that down there. Right. So it was not part of my culture. And then I come up here, I'm getting like super downloaded. 2013, I have my first experience with them. And then I'm just like, wait a minute. Oh, I gotta focus on this. This is ground level. This is something I can really focus on this. And I did.
So what was your first encounter? Can you talk about that? Where you're like, whoa, Yeah,
the first encounter was pretty mild, considering everything else that's happened since.
Right.
But it was enough to give me really great perspective in that moment of what was going on. And it also really answered some questions for me, or at least validated some the ideas that I had. So I was on private land up near Mount Adams, and I was camping. It was a camping situation with other people. I had a pretty bad upper respiratory situation going on. I had a friend who flew in from Texas to go on this camping trip with me. And And so I couldn't, I couldn't bail out. I was like, if I got this thing going on, it's whatever, we're going to go.
Mhm.
And we did. And at that time I had a 1989 Dodge Ram B250. So an older van, awesome. And in the back, it had the jackknife sofa and then the 4 captain's chairs. So my friend was up in the front passenger and she had made like her bed area up there. The place where we camped was right off of a really large, big field, and we were up against the tree line. And I took the jackknife sofa bed in the back. And the first night that we were camping, I woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning, because why not? That's the time you do it.
Right.
And she was asleep. Everyone else that was camping around in this area, everyone was asleep. I started coughing and I could not stop. And I didn't want to wake her up. So the back of the van has the 2 double doors.
Sure. Yep.
And I opened the door and I slipped outside. And I slipped outside to smoke a cigarette. Because even though I was coughing, I knew I could like get phlegm from a cigarette and it would calm this dry throat that I had.
Right.
So I went outside and I was on the driver's side of the van, just looking out into the field, this beautiful sky, no clouds, nothing's going on, and I'm in the moment. And in the tree line behind me, there's a call and response on the left and right side of me. And it's at least two, probably more individuals, right? But there's at least one on the right and at least one on the left. And they start going, hoo-wah, 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 hoo-wah.
Wow.
Hoo-wah, hoo-wah, like that. And I'm standing there, I'm like, huh? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I look behind me into the tree line, and I knew that they were telepathic. So my first communication to them was, peace be with you, much love. And that's what I said. That's what I projected out. And as soon as I did, they stopped. So there was no more who was. And then it was super quiet and I was the only one out there. And I started laughing. And I looked like I was turning and I was laughing. And I looked up into the sky because I couldn't believe I just telepathed what I did to potential Sasquatch behind me, maybe 50 feet. And when I looked up into the sky, 2 orbs of light, which I called UFOs at the time because that's what they look like. The ones that I interact with most are the orbs of white, brilliant electric light.
Okay.
But these were lower. These were probably like 200 feet above, and 2 of them came and did an X right over top where I stood.
Wow.
And then I said, well, I guess that's related. I guess those 2 things are related, right? And at that time, I was because all of the UFO activity, I thought it was UFOs. Okay, the UFO people and the Sasquatch people are in cahoots. At this point, I'm not sure. I don't know if it was the Sasquatch who were in orbs and who did that. And now I think, and when it happened, I used to always call it a cross because that's what it was. It was, they crossed over. But now that I think back to it, it's the X. It's the X. It's the X that they show us all the time.
Right.
It's that X of welcome, of hello, of greetings. And that's how I interpret it. I know many people interpret it maybe on a negative side of like, don't come into this area or whatever. But with the clans that we're interacting with up in Washington, and really anywhere I've gone, that X has been presented with love. Right. And that X has been presented with, we're really excited that you're here.
Gotcha.
So, now I think about it, I'm like, they put this X, from orbs right above.
Right.
So that was the first conscious. I will say it's the first conscious experience that I had with them. I don't know if I experienced them in my childhood. I can think back to some moments and go, that's pretty squatchy. Now that I think about it. Now that I have a little more perspective, that was a pretty squatchy experience. And I can do that with a couple of things, but I don't have that memory of the actual eye contact or anything. Could my memory be wiped? Could my brain did it put it in a little compartment? I don't know, but beyond even just like that first introduction in 2013, this connection, it's soul level. It's beyond the physical. And I, what is that teaching us more than anything? This unification of us.
Right.
I like to say that it's, and others have said this too, and it's so important. And they say it too. The Sasquatch people say this too, it's really not us that, you guys want to learn about us, but in the process, you're learning about you, and that's what it's about, know?
So what do they like want from us, or like, are they just here to help us, to make the world a better place? Or what do you feel like they're here for?
I don't have an answer for that because I've never been given that answer. And this is speculation on my part, but speculation based off of the experiences.
Gotcha.
And I think that they know how traumatized we are. They know how much trauma we've gone through.
Right.
And it's, we not just like on the lower levels of, or the more intimate levels of family or community or anything like that, but from the top up level down, right. we've been in some pretty depressed situations for at least 100 years. And if we know that, like, the Salish people up in the Pacific Northwest were still trading with them up until the 1850s, 1860s. I'm sure they're still, but right. It's not advertised, I guess, as much as it was historically documented. Right. But what was our relationship before 100 years ago? I don't think it was that bad of a relationship. And whatever has happened to us, which I think, that I could fill up many podcasts with my theories about what's happened to us within the last 100 years.
Sure.
But, I think that they're doing their own thing. They're definitely having their own experience. And they are playing key roles for specific people who are meeting them halfway and who are putting time, effort, energy into this subject. Boy, oh boy, that's like, just the uptick of what is happening with experiencers right now, I think is unlike anything we've ever seen in the last 100 years, So it's like we've been disconnected. It doesn't seem for that long of a time. And our connection is growing so quickly every day, our connection back to each other.
Right.
And, I think they really want to see us heal more than anything. What does a healed human look like? What does a fully actuated human who has let go of generational trauma and addiction and, like all these things that can really muck us up when we are fully in tune in ourselves? What does that look like? What does that look like times all of humanity? That's a big thing. And they know that, and it doesn't take much for us to get really jacked up, in a couple of generations with some hardcore trauma from the top down.
Right.
So if we're thinking of, whoever, whatever the big bad is in this third dimensional realm of, good versus evil, where we have like at the kind of a crazy show that's been happening, not just, the last 5 years or whatever. It's our whole lives. You know, this is a big, long plan that's been going down for quite some time, and it's unraveling.
Right.
Like it is unraveling. It's being exposed more so than ever. So I find the correlations between, you know, Sasquatch induced healing on emotional levels, plus like, you know, this, you know, the self-destruction of evil happening in some very big ways right now. You know, it makes sense that it's happening.
Right.
It's all happening right now, you know?
Right. So I've been watching some of your videos, and how often do you get out to the woods? Because it seems like you're out there all the time.
I try to go as much as I can. I started camping with Barb Shoop in 2018.
Okay.
And I really, from 2013 to 2018, I was going maybe having interactions 2 to 4 times a year. And then when I started with Barb's group, I just go out as often as I can. Anytime my schedule permits, I'm going to be camping. And it's really funny because I've been going 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, sometimes 2, 4 days trips out into different areas around the Pacific Northwest and out as far as Oklahoma. I went to Oklahoma last year. And I have had connections with Sasquatch in these places, even when I've just stepped on the land for the first time.
Wow.
And I've done most of my camping up here in the Pacific Northwest within this like 6 hours area. And it's phenomenal. I'm having amazing connections, experiences. And then about a month ago, I met a new friend in March. It was actually March 6th. And her and her partner were having like a traditional Greek salon. And I went to this event and we met, and then we became friends on Facebook after that. Right. And then it was like maybe 2-3 days later, it was I guess it was the beginning of April.
Right.
She posts a video and she's in Mount Tabor Park, and Mount Tabor Park is a really interesting park in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
It's in kind of the center of the city almost. And it's a dormant volcano. Only of like, it's either one of one or one of 2 or 3 dormant volcanoes within city limits in the entire world. Okay.
Wow.
And there's a massive cinder cone. It's less than 200 acres. It's about, I think it's like 179 acres, something like that. But it's surrounded by neighborhoods. It's surrounded for miles by neighborhoods, right?
That's
well,
crazy.
She takes this video because she went to the park and she found a fort. And she's crawling around this fort, in quotations, calling it a fort and filming it. And my jaw hits the floor as I'm watching it because I said, that's a Sasquatch structure.
So is that the one you have on your channel?
Yeah.
10 days ago you posted? Yeah, that's incredible. I highly suggest everybody to go and look at that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Phenomenal. And I've got some crazy stories. I really have some.
And it's even intertwined, and you know, it's
like is it like woven, like a basket type thing?
Yes, it is definitely not tree fall.
So, so it's there's so much going on in this park. I mean, like it's blown my mind. It really has. And I know that I've had Sasquatch activity at my house. You know, I'm in the city. I'm very much in the city. I'm not that far away from the park. Right. And I know that they can go wherever they want. I know that they're interdimensional. I know that they are within, you know, super, super close to the city. But this is kind of different, because it's surrounded. There is no green belt going to, it's just an island it's an island of forest of a volcano surrounded by the city.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I hadn't visited this park very much throughout this time that I've lived here. I've lived here for 15 years, and I might have visited this park maybe 6 times, right? And really, because if I'm going into the forest, I'm going out, to the places that I go Sasquatch connection camping. So I just really haven't focused on the city. Why would I?
Right.
But a couple of years ago, my partner and I took our dog to Mount Tabor to go walk him around. It's a water, a big water thing, reservoir. Okay. So there's a reservoir in Mount Tabor. It was built in the 1800s, supposedly. I think it's older. That's another story. Older. Yeah, I think it's a little older. But we went to this particular spot because it was flat and it was easier for him, and he was a senior dog. So we came and we parked in this area, and as we're walking up to go to walk around this reservoir, I see a very, very, very compelling Sasquatch-like structure of branches that have been shoved into this open little lawn area off to the side of just grass, this little knoll. And there were branches stuck upside down into the ground. And then there were other branches balancing in the wind on top of these structures. Wow. And that was like the first time we went to the park, mm-hmm. And we're like, what is going on? This is crazy. Is this really right. What this is? And I mean, do you want to get I can get weird if you want to get weird on this.
Absolutely.
You want to get weird?
Absolutely.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. Hey, we're here for it. Let's go.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So these things are over here. I start taking pictures, mm-hmm. and I'm walking around them. There's no one else kind of in the vicinity except for 2 ladies that are about 60 feet away from us. Mm-hmm. They're facing each other, but there's one who's kind of like facing us, and she's also like facing her friend, but she keeps looking at us. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about, but I do notice that she keeps on looking over at us with a smirk on her face. And she's got this sly smile on her face. And I'm looking at them, and they just look like normal Mount Tabor ladies, They're right. dressed sharply, and they're doing their walk, but they weren't. They were just stopped. They were talking. Had the smile on her face as she was looking at me and my partner, staring at these Sasquatch structures and really like focusing on them.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. And I'm looking around, and then up this hill, there's a man, and I only see him from the back, and he has these huge dreads, big, thick dreads. Mm-hmm. That are wild, right? And he's got like ragged kind of clothing on, and there's this whole like structure type situation happening up where he's at, and he has like 2 machetes in the back of his belt, right? And he's doing all this stuff, and I look up and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess this guy's the one who's doing it, right? Mm-hmm. That my brain goes doop, doop, doop. That makes sense. It's just this guy right. who's making these. And I'm still kind of like canvassing, head on a swivel, just taking right. in the whole thing. And still that woman with the sly smile on her face is still looking at us with that sly smile on her face.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's just a guy. I'm not going to go ask him if he did this. He's got machetes in his belt. And the last time I checked, you're not supposed to have that in a public park. I don't think he was a gardener. So I was like, I'm not going to go talk to that guy and just confirm. We're just going to walk our dog,
Right.
So we do. We walk the dog and we get back around. None of those people are there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was a couple of years ago. Since then, the people I camp with, we absolutely 100% know for a fact, for surezies, that the Sasquatch can shapeshift, and they can shapeshift into any shape that they want, to include humans. Okay.
Wow.
They have mimicked us before, and they mimicked me last September.
Wow.
And they can stand right next to us. They have been shapeshifted into one of our campers and been standing in the group, listening to Barb do a talk about something. And then when Barb goes to talk to that person who was standing there, they said, "No, Barb, I wasn't there. I wasn't there." But Barb gets a sly smile from that person when she was there standing. So they can shapeshift into animals. They can shapeshift into balls of light. They can cloak. They can do anything that they want with their bodies. And as far as I'm concerned, they can shapeshift into humans. So now I have to go back to that moment in time 2 years ago at Mount Tabor and really reevaluate what I stepped into. Were those just two ladies who were standing there and watching how I would react? Who was that guy with the big dreads, and tattered clothing, doing these structure type deals with just random materials at the park of trees and whatnot. And that's where I'm at with that,
Yeah. I've heard other people say that, they can shapeshift into different things and stuff too. So I've heard that from. I've just personally never witnessed anything like that,
Yeah. I mean, and it's either one of two things that happened last September at camp. It was either a mimic of me or a time loop. Sure. And it ties into my first sighting, actually. So I've had a lot of different paranormal experiences with the Sasquatch.
I was gonna ask you about that.
A lot, all sorts, all kinds, right? I've seen them in their light body. I saw them in their light body. I saw one of them, a very large one, as he was flanking us as we were walking up to the red orb. Which is what I speak of in the Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot documentary. And there's also the video of that in there too. So during that experience, there was a light-bodied one who was flanking us, and he did Jedi mind trick because I went back and I looked behind, and you would think that if you saw something like that, you would stop, you would put your attention on it, but he didn't want the attention on him. And I acknowledged and kept on walking. Right. And then later it's like, why did I keep on walking? Well, I didn't have control. They did, And that's an interesting thing when they take over, because they can and they do. Right? They can take over your emotions. They can take over where you're walking. They can put you to sleep. They can do a lot of different things with you physically without even touching you. So, last September, go ahead.
I got to thinking about that. I mean, with the experience that Chris and I had a close-up visual of what happened, and it didn't take me long after that had happened when I heard it walk off, and I would sleep. I call it like an adrenaline dump. Like my whole body just said, "Nope, we're done. We've had enough. We've had enough." I was out.
Yep. Yeah.
And I didn't. I mean, I didn't sleep. Like I guess I was sleeping like I had taken like a sleeping pill. Nothing was waking me up. I didn't hear a thing. When I finally woke up, everyone around me was already awake because everybody had this experience. So everybody was awake except for me. And I had that visual. So I don't know. I mean, what you're saying to me is what people refer to as being zapped. I would say I hear that a lot, being zapped, where it just takes all that energy right on out of you. And I feel like that's kind of what happened to me. I mean, there were other things that had happened that you kind of mentioned, which we'll talk about that off air. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I didn't feel anything, I would say paranormal, metaphysical, anything like that, but it was just very strange.
Yeah.
It's like, how could I see something so huge, large, something I have never seen that close in my life to being passed out? I always ask myself that,
You're not the only one. It happens all the time. And that it's normal. That's the normal way of how all of our stories go. Like, in the morning when we're comparing notes, it's the same thing all the time from everybody, is that, And I think it's more than just an adrenaline dump. I think it has more to do with them going, you're going to sleep now, and potential dream time communication. Because there might have been an overload with just the visual, but that conversation wasn't over. You went into dream time, and potentially that conversation continued in some really deep ways. Look where you're at now with this subject, and how much you are representing these people, And so I wouldn't doubt that you had a really good conversation with whoever it was.
I probably did. I can't remember anything, but and it was probably all subconscious. It was just kind of like, we're going to tell you this. You're not going to remember it, but you will execute when the time is right. So, I get that that's kind of weird, but I get what you're saying with that. Yeah.
So this urban Sasquatch Mount Tabor stuff is just off the charts. I mean, what I saw 2 years ago was just a couple of sticks in the ground, and we would go back and I'd find smaller little structures. What's happening there right now is off the charts. It's stuff that it's so big. There's 4 trees that are 200 plus year old Douglas firs that are 150 feet or taller, that I think they fell down 2 years ago in a pretty large ice storm that we had.
Okay.
So these trees have fallen down and they've ripped up the root balls, right? So, and what they've done with these trees is that they've removed all of the branches. So it's just one big log down, laying on the ground with the root ball up and exposed, and then the indentation from where the root ball was. So that's happened on 4 different trees. And what the Sasquatch have done, have come and built the walls up around the upper part and have created cave systems of the inside the root balls. And they've been manipulating the interiors and bringing in different things and switching things up from like stuff that's in structure 1 is now in structure 2. And it's so easy to go, oh, well, humans are doing this because it's a park for humans in the middle of the city. And, I have to disagree. Number one, the structural integrity that's being showcased by these is just off the charts. It's incredible how tightly woven all of this is. Plus, there's very specific things that the Sasquatch will do that we see, patterns, behavior patterns, right? Stuff that we see out in the forest. I'm seeing all of those patterns and behaviors within the stuff that's happening in Tabor. So it's either someone who is very, very, very versed and who's never been seen, who's out there mimicking Sasquatch activity, or we have absolute Sasquatch activity happening in Mount Tabor. And the cherry on top of all of this, the proof that is at least good enough for me, all of it is, but after I went exploring further than the structures and I went further into this park off the beaten path, I found this amazing, my friend and I found actually, she brought me to this tree. And as we're standing there, I'm like, well, that branch is so interesting. it's coming back down and it's like woven. And this thing is, the branch is at least like this thick, it's a big branch. It's very, very long. And it's kind of been pretzeled. Well, I look up and it's been twisted. This thing has been twisted and it's been, that whole area has been shattered into toothpicks on at least 180 degrees.
Wow.
Of a twist. And then, that the rest of that part of the tree got woven and, brought back in and woven into the tree. So that wasn't a human, like a human doesn't have that strength. Just doesn't have it.
No.
So, and there's just, there's so much. And again, it shows like this collective conscious nature of the Sasquatch, this psychic connection that they have with each other. And when one knows you, they all know you, and they all know everything about you. Right. And they have this, either they're dealing with space and time differently, or they have this future sight or something to where they can do things before you even know you're going to be there. Right? There's something there for you even before you knew you were going to be there. So something that's happened now twice in my visits within the last month, I'm trying to go there once or twice a week. And this started this past September with my first sighting, right? This last September was a really big trip. A lot of stuff happened on it, but it was my first sighting. I had a very dear friend come in for a few days at the end of the camp, and she had been having her own Sasquatch activity. She was very curious. I said, come on into camp. So when she got into camp, we were down by the base camp, and the two of us were camped up, like up the road on the other side of the road over where my tent was. And we were not around anyone else. And so we were down at the base camp, and one of the other campers needed a hair tie. And so my friend Marin took the hair tie out of her hair and said, here, you can have it. It's okay. I'll go get another one, here, take this one that was out of my hair. It's okay. And so then the other camper took the hair tie and used it. Well, that act of compassion and kindness was fully seen, fully recognized by the Sasquatch clan that we connect with. They witnessed that and they held on to it. So later that evening at the 5 o'clock spot outside of her car in our camp area, there was a hair tie.
Wow.
The hair tie that she took out of her hair was a black ouchless hair tie, right? And that's the one that she handed over. The one that showed up next to her car was an old, faded one from the forest, right? She's like, oh my God, they gave me back a hair tie, right? Well, that was this past September. My friend is a flight attendant. So she's been traveling all over the world, and she does a lot of stops in New York, a lot of stops in Europe. And since September, she's been receiving black ouchless hair ties next to her car, at the threshold of her cottage in Paris, twice in Copenhagen, over the last 3 weeks. I got one at my work, and I've gotten two since I've been at Mount Tabor.
Wow.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible. Seriously.
You guys will never have to buy hair ties again, ever. No.
I actually started keeping them. I've kept the last two in from Mount Tabor because I would just leave them and just thank them. And, it was just an acknowledgement. And now I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start picking them up. So I started my collection. I have my first two now out of the 4 or so that I've received. My friend's kept all the ones that she's received, but it's, I've never found a black ouchless hair tie in my life. And now they're everywhere, and they're always in this 5 o'clock position outside of my car, or as I'm walking, I will literally walk up to them and they're in my path. So crazy. And it happened yesterday. I went to the park yesterday and I got a hair tie like that.
I'm sorry. We're not, us ladies are not losing hair ties like that, like crazy. We're not. We're not.
Yeah. That's not, you put it on your wrist, you were not.
Right.
It's like your hair tie and your keys. You always know where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, they're not super expensive to buy, but yeah, you don't want to turn around and spend $6-7, every time you turn around because you're losing your hair ties.
Yeah. Right. But now I'm finding them all over the place and it's just so fun. And what is that? It's just a confirmation. It's a confirmation of connection. It's fun, right? The number one thing that I like to say about the Sasquatch is their humor is some of the best I've ever experienced. The humor, this dad joke humor is so brilliant and beautiful, and it's so pure and really godly, right? Because we have a certain type of humor that's kind of the most popular, I guess, where it's at someone's expense, right? Mm-hmm. And the humor that they provide is this holy humor, is this pure humor where it uplifts everyone and it's at no one's expense. And there's a lesson in that too, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do have to talk about this story just a little bit. I didn't go on this camping trip. It turned out to be all guys though that ended up going, and it's with Tex, one of our podcasting team members. Anyway, so they were all out there and they decided that their pee spot was in the back of somebody's truck, and it's all dirt out there. So everybody go out in front of the truck and pee. Well, so they decided, somebody had went out there. I think it was Tex who went out there one time. And I mean, there was this huge spot out there right in the middle of where they were all going. And he's like, golly, who's got the bladder that big?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, we didn't pee there. we didn't pee there.
Yeah. That's funny.
So when you talk about that humor, it was just kind of like, you can't take a DNA sample from that. I mean, there's all this urine everywhere. You can't take a sample of that. But still, the funny part is they went out there and said, well, this is where they're going. I'm going to go to, just that humor. And that's what I found funny. Is like you're talking about the humor. I see that. I see that in the stories. Yeah.
There hasn't been a camp that I've attended that hasn't been full of that humor. It's that humor nonstop, and it's so good, and we can get back to that, that's not far away from us, and they're not far away from us. Yeah. And a life as free as a Sasquatch is not that far away from us. A healed life like the Sasquatch is not that far away from us. And I think that, that is the message that's coming through.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So we have a good friend, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and his Sasquatch encounter was awful. Like, it was horrifying. It was. And why do you think that some people, like, yours is so positive and they're good ones? Do you feel like there's good ones and there's bad ones out there?
Like,
what are your thoughts on
there's always a bad apple,
same with people. I get that. Same with people. There's good people. There's bad people. Do you think it's the same with the Sasquatch?
I do. I think that just with, even in the angelic realms, you're going to have the good, the bad, and the indifferent, right? Like, even in like the hour levels, in the higher levels, there is always going to be potential for fall. There's always going to be potential for wrong use of will, right? And I think that can play into it for sure. I think that I don't know how much military is meddling with genetics or DNA or hybrids or anything like that, because I don't think that the military is that smart, Honestly, even with all of the black ops military, all of the higher degree stuff, I still don't think that they're at the level of the Sasquatch that I've encountered.
I think we're looking at the wrong department. When people say military, I think we're looking at the wrong department.
Whatever it is, like whatever the black ops, whatever the higher, the military beyond the military, or the corporate, whatever, all of those higher levels, like
the contractors,
all the contractors, right? I mean, there could be that aspect as well. There's the Hanford testing labs up here, which apparently they were taking alpha predators and messing with them genetically, and some escaped, and that's declassified information as far as I understand it. And now we have a click attack cat that's running around, and it's a black panther with a monkey face. So are there chimeras, are there hybrids, are there other things, right? That's something that I say often. The Sasquatch are not the only ones in the forest at all. And we can have a lot of fucking encounters with a lot of weird shit, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
And so then, like, I gotta try to figure out in my mind, like, well, what's the percentage, right? Like, what's the percentage of all of these things where we as humans might just want to lump it all into the category of Sasquatch, when you could have 4 or 5 different things going on. And then there is that some people have talked about how there's very, very psychic Sasquatches and Sasquatch people who are teaching the children these higher dimensional ways, and they're living in higher dimensional aspects and ways in their lives, right? And then I've heard that there are others who are taking more of a just physical experience here, and they are not teaching their children the psychic ways, and they are really just teaching them the physical ways. And so if you're talking about that, are you going to have more of a territorial situation, or are they going to be even more protective of their children and like really come after you if you get too close? So these encounters, a lot of these encounters where people have been traumatized, have had terrible, crazy things happen, and then they you can't talk about it, or maybe you can, but most people can't. I'm a big advocate for this conversation that we're having right now, because there's so many people throughout their lives who have not been able to have this conversation with their spouses, with their parents, with their church, with anything. This conversation is very important, so we can suss out all of these different things and experiences that people have had, and also really remember that we're all still here, right? We're all still here. It might have been really, really frightening in the moment, and even for months and years after, but we didn't die, right? So the encounter had something more embedded in the encounter than just, the physical reaction to the encounter. So what else is out there? There's a lot. And with veil thinning times, we are going to potentially, I would think, become very much more face to face with more things. So, is good spiritual preparation important? Yes. Is good physical preparation important? Yes. Like all of these things are very important. Just kind of moving forward. Look where we're at right now. Where in the world are we going to be in 5 years? With just this subject and everything else, because I'm pretty sure I've had an encounter with Dogman, and it wasn't a scary one. Although I was scared. Again, I'm here and nothing happened to me. I was not harmed in any sort of way. But it was jarring in the moment. And what else is there? Right. I cannot put a cap on the creationary efforts of God. Especially, in not even just the physical, but the non-physical as well. Holy smokes, we're dealing with a lot. And if we're in this really interesting realm where it's like super challenging on a lot of cool levels. And it's not just a natural world. It is an absolute supernatural world. We are dealing with supernatural beings all the time. I recently said with all this Mount Tabor stuff coming to light for me, I've been saying in my videos, if you can have a ghost in your house, you can have a Sasquatch in your park.
Right? Why not? Why not?
So like that world, that supernatural world is not far away. We are in it. You know, this isn't just a physical world of physical properties. Not at all. Not in one tiny little, not at all.
Right.
If there's just one ghost story, one person in the entire history of the world who had a ghost story, we would still be in a supernaturalistic world. But that's not the case. You know, the case is that we have been dealing with supernatural beings and situations for the entire time since we were able to take some blood and mud and mix it together and stick a story on the wall of the cave. You know, what in the world were they seeing? You know,
Exactly.
So here we are. It's beautiful. We have Sasquatch in our parks and.
Right. Well, we have Sasquatch in our cities too.
There you go. We do. We have Dogman in our cities too. It's just a thing. It's what happens. I don't know what happens, but it just does.
Yeah. Well, there is we know of a Dogman sighting. We're, in Missouri, and the St. Louis Arch is downtown St. Louis, and
right by the river, sitting on almost on the river.
There was a Dogman encounter down there by the arch, and it's
no way.
Yeah, super populated.
I went through St. Louis a few years back on my way back home to Kentucky, and for a family reunion. And holy smokes, it was so strange because I don't know. I remember driving on the freeway, and then like the arch was on the left-hand side in the city and everything. And I'd never gone through the city. I mean, like the buildings were, I couldn't keep my eyes on the road because of the old buildings and just like so, I mean, these buildings too are portals, right? They're energetic portals. They were energy harvesters, these old buildings. Do you know about like the Tartaria or the mud flood stuff at all with the research going into that?
No.
Okay, that's a totally different subject, but
it's a totally different show, probably.
Totally different show. But it kind of relates to this, what you're saying, because when I see a city that's so filled with those buildings that were manipulating energy and ether back in the day, right? Like I think a lot of the suppression of ether-based technology. When the Rockefellers came in, when the Astors, when the Carnegies, when these Morgans and all of these families came in and really mucked things up, I think there was a lot of suppression of some free technology. And then, of course, they brought in their technology and we've been paying them ever since. So these older buildings could still be online. Right? They could still be harvesting energy and they could still be creating portals.
Did you feel weird in St. Louis though? Did you feel weird?
My hair was on the back of my neck, like standing straight up, and I was just like driving and just like praying I wasn't gonna,
Right. So let me give you a little tidbit of information, probably why that was happening. St. Louis used to be called Mounds City. It used to be old Indian burial grounds, and there was all these mounds out there, and they finally took them out and flattened them out. So you're probably feeling that energy that is built up. I mean, not only that, you have that Mississippi running. That right there is a butt ton of energy. I'm just going to say, it's just so much energy, and plus just the history and everything, St. Louis history hasn't been all that great. There's been a lot of bad history going through there. So, that's why you were feeling kind of weird going through there. If you're sensitive at all, you're going to feel like, it's either you want to stay and explore or you want to get the heck out. It's one of those two.
Yeah, this is a magical land, right? And it's been manipulated and destroyed and built upon. And, you know, we don't have our history. We don't have a true history. We've had a very selected and washed history. And again, like there's just this culmination that's happening right now of disclosure. We are in apocalyptic times. Guess what? That is true. This is the apocalypse. What is the apocalypse? The apocalypse is the unveiling. It is the unveiling. That's what the word means, right? So there's no other time in my little life of you know, the time that I've been here, and probably my parents and grandparents, and for a few generations out of there, to where we haven't seen this. Like we're seeing it now with the disclosure of where we're at, who we are, who our neighbors are, you know, how expanded we are, what the multidimensional reality truly is. Like it's happening now, and we're being helped. You know, the Sasquatch, I think the Sasquatch are giving more and more of themselves to us for this unveiling, to help us in the ways that they can. Same with the star people. When I said that I saw a lot of UFOs, I saw a lot. I have the number up here because I started doing a mental tally probably around 2011, when after I was seeing so many, I was like, I really should probably keep a number, you know, keep a tally. So every time I saw a new one, and you know, this isn't stuff that's super far away and non-interacting. This stuff is low. These things are powering up when I'm sending them thoughts of thank you and God bless you, you know, and then they're powering up, and then there's an exchange, right? All of those things have been going on with that. And I quit keeping this count in 2021 because I had already gotten up. It was July 24th, 2021. And the last number that I recorded was 1,149.
Oh,
wow.
Since like 2011 to 2021, I saw 1,149, and I see on average about 100 a year. Wow. So, and I'm in the city, and I just go to my front yard and I ask for them to come through, and I tell them, hey, what's up? You know, and they come through.
Kind of like, do you kind of like do a CE5 type thing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to go outside. I say a prayer to God. I say kind of like my prayer to God, my prayer to Earth, and to my ancestors, and I say a shout out to my Sasquatch homies and my star family, and I'll get responses 9 times out of 10. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So have you ever had the feeling that maybe the person that's walked past you, or you walked by, or anything may not be exactly human?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Especially with those ladies and that dude in the park. Like that was.
Yeah. I mean, there was that. I mean, I'm just feeling like
there. You know, the movie. What was the Men in Black movie for kids?
Yeah,
that's a documentary. That's a documentary, right? They didn't just put that together for shits and giggles and call it fiction. No, they were telling you something with that. The same with the movie They Live. Rowdy Piper was gonna go out on a podcast the day before he died because he had recently, you know, and he still, the quote is out there, They Live wasn't a fictional movie, it was a documentary. And he was going to go on a podcast and just spill the beans, and then he died the next day. So, you know, these ideas of sharing this realm with other beings that are not human, who can shapeshift into human, you know, presenting.
Yeah.
That's throughout history. That's not even just something that's, you know, right now, but that is throughout history. You know, the shapeshifters and the skinwalkers and everything else. And so that's not for us to like lose our brains, you know, or to crack our brains. It is kind of like a pretty thick cup of coffee to drink, right? But it can be more empowering than anything else.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
What did you think about that video that came out? Now, this has been out for a long time, about that lady who was on the airplane who had the complete meltdown. And she's screaming that they're not real.
I I worked in law enforcement for almost 10 years, and I worked in the corrections system. And I learned how to read people pretty well within that job, because I did a lot of talking to people, right? Who were telling the truth and also lying. And I got a pretty good eagle eye for that. As far as I'm concerned, that woman was having a very real emotional response to whatever it was that she was experiencing. And she was speaking a truth that was true to her.
Right?
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I've listened. I probably watched that thing 50 times or so, just watching it. And her voice actually, it distorts. It doesn't sound like her, like when she's doing a later interview, when she supposedly didn't see anything, that it was all a hoax or whatever.
Real quick, Barbara says, didn't she die recently? I hadn't heard that.
I hadn't heard that either. We better look that up.
Yeah.
Because that would be kind of,
funny. All of when you go back to the Miami mall situation.
Yes, yeah.
Like I was listening to those people who were the eyewitnesses, and they were just trying to share their story on their TikTok, and no one was paying attention to them. And I'm like, those people are saying the truth. They're talking their truth. Those things really happened to them. They really saw those things, and they are speaking these details, and they're, going into all these details because they actually had that experience.
Yeah.
And, Miami's another mound place, right? There's mounds right in the middle of the city. So when you're talking, and those, the way that those beings were described, those beings were just as surprised to be there, right? Like, so, as funky as this place is, it's still a lot of fun, right? Like,
right.
It's still a lot of fun. Like there's so much more to learn. We're here for purpose. This entire thing has purpose. Even the evil and the bad doers in this world have purpose. And, if it's for the evolution of us all, especially to see it and call it out, and in the other directions, you can't know one without the other. That's where we're at right now. And we're just being super encouraged by those who are outside of this system, right?
Right.
It's awesome.
Right.
Because Chris and I always believe that everything's it's intertwined. We don't know to what extent, how much, but there's something. There is something that ties all of this together, and it's putting the puzzle together, trying to figure it out. It's all connected somewhere. We just don't know where.
In the mind of God.
That's what I keep saying. It's like, the day that I pass is the day I'm going to know.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. Yeah. And then I'll be like, see, I was
What
telling everybody.
Right? I mean, like, what a wild, beautiful ride. I so appreciate it. This is the adventure of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And we are safer and freer than we've ever been. And we have a lot more to go to get to the places of the Sasquatch or the Star People, or those who are outside of the systems and living in harmonious ways, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say peace.
Yeah, in peaceful ways. And that is our true nature, right?
Yeah.
The true nature of humanity, outside of trauma and outside of, like the depressed state. My goodness. Just like how brilliant, beautiful, amazing creators we are.
Yeah.
What brilliant, beautiful parents we are. What beautiful artists and thinkers, and it's so amazing, and it makes sense why we are the target as well as the key to it all. We are the target because we are the key.
Sure.
And we have free will in this strange, amazing realm. And, if you choose to take you can, in this supernaturalistic world, because of free will, you cannot engage with it at all if you don't want to. Right. You have that choice,
Right.
And you also have the choice of going as deep as you want. I think it's very important it's so important that if you decide to look into the abyss, no, it's going to look back.
Right.
And be prepared and be spiritually, put your armor on. Don't believe everything that you hear from the supernatural world, like have your discernment.
That's right.
Have to have your discernment, because the Sasquatch aren't the only ones who can shapeshift, and the Sasquatch aren't the only ones who can mind speak, right?
Absolutely.
You can have a lot of mind speak from entities who do not have your best interest in mind, and who want to use you in some pretty puppet ways. That's very much a very big reality that's happening to a lot of people, especially those people who suffer with like drug addiction and stuff, who have opened their brains up, to unfortunate interference from the demonic, realms. You can artificially open yourself up to that through drugs and alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And some people are born with it, just as shamans are born with an extra sense for the spirit world, right? And so I think it's super important to remember that, and to walk like really, really respectfully.
Absolutely.
Really respectfully, and to have your boundaries, and to stand up straight in this. And when you are out there to connect with the Sasquatch and with the higher dimensional beings, speak it. And also say that if there's anyone out there that has harm or ill will, you're not allowed in. You can't come here. I would rather have no experience than a bad experience. Only good. I'm only allowing the good in. I only want to have the higher experience and connection with the brothers and sisters of God, right?
Absolutely.
That makes a difference.
It does. I mean, we talk about all the time of putting our spiritual armor on. You've got to have that in anywhere you go, even with people. You've got to have that armor on, because people are probably the worst. I want to say when it comes to peace, love, and happiness, people are the worst.
I would say a traumatized person is the worst. And we are in trauma right now, and we're in generational trauma. This isn't our natural state. This is where we're at after fucking, just years of oppression and pressure.
Right.
And yes, like humans are the worst when we are traumatized and depressed and under this pressure that is like so unwarranted, except for as being part of the plan to keep us in these lower states, because we can be the Tasmanian devil. We can be the worst tornado and cause the most destruction when we are completely out of whack. And that's where we're at, right? It's the Sasquatch has I think Tom said this, that the Sasquatch they referred to us as like a baby with a loaded gun. Right? We don't know our power. We don't know the amount of destruction that we can do when we are just a baby holding a gun. Right? So that's why I do think this healing is so on the top of their list of activities to engage with us with. Because they do know when you aren't traumatized, you shine so bright. But you guys are just so broken right now. Everyone.
I mean, even with your, self-esteem, people who seeking validation so they'll feel better, or, it's all of it. It's all wrapped up into one. We as a society, I think, need to grow stronger in a more loving society. Really, we really need to get back to the way we were in past generations. I believe that is a fact. We have gone so separate ways now that it's just like everybody's fighting.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody's fighting. The cryptid community, the paranormal community, they're fighting. They're infighting. I mean, cat lovers, dog lovers, they're fighting. You know, it doesn't really matter. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I got cats and dogs. I'm just saying. I love them all, you know. And I just, you know, I do really believe that, you know, that our society is breaking down in that aspect. And
you know,
I think that's why a lot of things, maybe the veil is thinning because of that, because of all the negativity coming from the world and all of this other kind of stuff. Maybe we are the cause of what's going to explode.
And good. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to have destruction to rise from the ashes. I'm pretty excited to see this like transmutation through fire. You know, this transmutation of all of us through kind of like some pretty gnarly times. It's been gnarly times for sure, you know, but what can come from that and what does come from that, you know, that diamond gets formed from the pressure, you know.
That's right.
So again, like this is this just like precipice of a time frame that I've never seen in the history of my life. And I'm sure that can extend for the last like 100 years. We haven't seen this, but we're here now. And it is a beautiful thing. And yes, there is destruction, chaos, mayhem, all of that, you know, the worst of the worst, with how people treat each other and treat themselves, number one, right? And it goes the entire gamut. All, you know, it goes the entire rainbow. It goes the entire spectrum of experience here to the highest places of love, peace, you know, friendship. And I've felt that from the Sasquatch, you know, feeling that zap that you talked about, the love zap.
Right.
It brought me to my knees and I bawled my eyes out for 15 minutes inside this structure that was close to the campsite. And I felt the matriarch of the clan. I felt her hug me. You know, she put her arms around me in an energetic form as I was bawling and releasing all of this sadness and stuff that I had been holding on to because I had gone through a lot of death. I had a lot of transitions and a lot of family die. And I thought I had kind of successfully moved through all of that, but I didn't, you know, I hadn't, and I was still holding on to it. And I didn't know it until this release happened because it was, you know, it was facilitated by a female Sasquatch who loved me that much, you know?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I like Barbara's comment here. Wear your trauma as your armor.
It can be the biggest teacher. It can be the thickest armor. It can transmute you in the biggest ways. And really, you know, there's no victim. No one is a victim of anything, right? We go through experiences. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. And all of them, something can be pulled out of it that ultimately, like, you know, sheds the snake skin, you know, especially the hard things, especially the hard things that we go through. And everything has been like so uniquely woven. You know, the trauma has been uniquely woven into our lives by God, right? You know, we do have a creator of all creation. There is something that created all of this and who really, like, this isn't a bad place. It's not, we aren't being tortured, right? This is a playground. This is a playground where you can graduate to some pretty large levels when you move successfully through the playground in a good way. And some of that includes scraping your knees. Some of that includes falling off of the jungle gym. You know, some of that includes being pushed down by the bully. Some of that includes, you know, all the ways in which you would interact in that time on the playground. But boy, you learn so much from every single one of those experiences, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's great. And on kind of like that creepier gross level of like MK Ultra and whatnot, where trauma is imbued in children because it raises their psychic abilities and they all of that. So like they know what they're doing with trauma. The evil in this world knows that they can manipulate people most effectively through the trauma, and then they get us to a place where we're doing it to ourselves and each other, and then they can just step away and watch the shit show, right? So breaking that cycle and just like from the ground up, from the roots up, from your home, that is paradigm shifting. That breaks the cycles that no longer like continue in this reality. It cleans up the space, it clears it up, right? And it's doing so not just in the present and for the future, but you're helping your ancestors as well, right? So it's big time. It's big time what we're doing here. It's not just about, the 9 to 5, although that is important too. All of the aspects are important. They're all different theaters for us to step into and interact with people. And maybe they're difficult, personas or very easy to get along with, but there's lessons in everyone. We are mirrors to each other, and we're walking each other home. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's have fun. Let's do this. Let's hold hands. Let's hang out with Sasquatch. We're walking each other home. We're, it's a lot of fun.
I love that. Hand in hand, Sasquatch. Yes. Let's go. Let's
go. Absolutely.
I love that. Anyway, boy, that flew by really fast, Krista.
I know. I was just thinking that, like, we're going to have you back, Ashlea, because you are
so much.
Yeah, we're really going to have to wait a couple months and see what you come across and see hear about your new adventures and everything else. But Krista, we got to do something. We got to thank somebody.
We do.
For we got some Squatch poop.
We do. Hold on. I'm gonna grab mine. Hold on.
Okay, hold on. We got some. And BJ, you know who you are. We got we got the Squatch poop. We couldn't have got a better place.
Have you ever seen Sasquatch poop?
I have not seen Sasquatch poop, but you got to see this poop. It's very original.
Yeah, okay. It is. I love it.
Yeah. It's one of a kind. So hold on, she's going to show you what it is. It's Squatch poop.
Are those knitted?
Yes, they're little cat toys.
Yeah, Squatch and they have catnip in them. They have catnip in them.
So
I love it.
So we both got some from BJ, and I haven't given my daughter's cat the Squatch poop because she's been a very bad kitty.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because our outside cat had kittens, and we all know the drama over that. So I've been trying to save, the 3 that I have left. And every time my daughter helps me with the kittens, her cat attacks her. Every time.
Oh wow.
So that cat is not getting any toys until she knows how to act. I'm just saying. But those might make her chill out.
What's funny about catnip is that if it's filled with catnip, people think that it makes cats high. It doesn't. It makes them horny. That's why they act all funky.
My cat's spayed, so
get him.
Maybe she'll go flip around in a corner and not attack my daughter. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know. Because my daughter actually had to sleep on the couch last night.
Oh wow.
Because the cat was attacking her because we're trying to their eyes are starting to open and they got a little bit of goop, so we're trying to get the goop out of their eyes to get their eyes open. And oh my gosh.
How many kittens do you have?
I have 3 that survived. 3 that survived out of the 5.
What colors?
I have one that's pure black, that's a boy. I have one that has like a sparkle kind of face. It's got different colors on its face, but it's got a half mouth. One's white and the other side's black, and then it's got golden on its face only, and the other one looks like a gray tabby. I'm like, what you been doing there, girl?
She's been hitting all the boys in the town.
I think you've been messing with a couple boys in the neighborhood.
Right.
Because the only male that I caught around here was all gray. So I think I know where the gray tabby came from. But for the black, I have no idea.
No telling.
No telling. Because she's all gray with green eyes.
Yeah. No
so
idea.
I'm like, I don't know. She's a girl about the town.
Yeah. I'll say.
Girl about the farm. How about that? The girl about the farm.
Well, thank you very much, Ashlea, for coming on. And seriously, like, we will have you back because I've enjoyed this.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And just a quick shout out. My channel on YouTube is Crypto Cryptid 1487. Also, if you just look my name up, it'll pop up. And I also just highly suggest for all of your fans and all the people listening to go check out the Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot documentary, along with all the extended interviews and the other documentaries that the Flash of Beauty team is doing over at their YouTube channel. And man, oh man, that library keeps extending, and it's joining the chorus of yours and everyone else out there who is bringing the stories to light. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to next time, and I'll have some more stories for you.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's been a lot of fun. You're great. You really are. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thank you so much.
For sure. And everybody tune in tomorrow night. I think Brandy's going to be a little bit late coming into the show. We might just start the show at 8 then. We might just do that, Brandy.
You can. Why don't we just do that? 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
And then Brandy won't be late.
Then I won't be late. Sorry, everybody.
We'll do an 8 o'clock show tomorrow night, guys, instead of 7 that we usually do.
Absolutely. So we'll get everything set up, and so everybody will see us 8 o'clock tomorrow night. That way we're good. We're golden.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody. And real quick, I want to thank Keith real quick. Thank you very much,
Keith.
We appreciate it. And until tomorrow night, see you guys later. Have a good night.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.